Live from the Big Tomato, it's Kings Pod 2020 with your hosts, Geoff and Toke. All right, Geoff. It is early evening on April 13th. This will probably come out on the 14th. Our hometown Sacramento Kings finished their season yesterday on I think it was a trip to Portland, in which they ended up losing, and so they finished the season 22-60. I gotta say, before we even get to the agenda, this was probably the most boring season that I recall. I mean, every other season at least had some drama or something interesting. This season was just sad and depressing and really sucked whatever juice we got out of the Beam Team era, just completely dry. And, you know, probably with all the discussions we've had around nostalgia, can you imagine in a couple of years when we're talking nostalgically about the Beam Team?
Boy, that's rough. This has been a rough one, man. I mean, coming into the season, I think none of us expected it to be as bad as it was. And what were our predictions at the beginning of the year? I think we said 38.
You said 38, and I think I said, well, I have to like one up you and say 39 or 137. Basically, I just try to do the move where I did plus or minus one to whatever you said so I could win. But
we both lost.
We both lost. There was no winners here. I'm sure someone took the under in Vegas. They won.
They won big time. I mean, I think that this was a painful season, man. This was a season where, again, no one expected us to be great, but to see us be this bad was deflating, and it was obvious, like real early, that we were going to be bad. It's not like we had some sort of a glimmer of hope at any point. It was obvious real early on that we were going to be bad.
Yeah, I think we had an episode early on, maybe it was even before the season started, where we talked about what a successful season would look like, and I think we settled on like basically 500. If this team won 41 games, that would be like their ceiling. Like, that's great. But I don't think any of us pictured, you know, a race to get to 20 wins at the end of the season as like on the table, even with injuries. Like, that wasn't something we thought was going to happen.
Right.
I think what happened, though, was when you lost Keegan right before the regular season started, there was this realization that set in, which is like, oh, they don't have a forward on the team, and that's already a problem. And when you take Keegan off the team and you're playing Sabonis with four guards, and Sabonis is already undersized for a center.
Exactly.
Wait, how is this team supposed to win 35 games? So I think that the line moved at that point to like 25. But I think with all that being said, there's no one going into this season that had the Kings winning 22 games. And where the blame falls for me is squarely on the shoulders of Doug Christie. And we found out, I believe, Saturday afternoon, I think it was leaked by Slater was leaking it, that the Kings are going to bring back Doug Christie next season. And this is just the worst possible thing that could happen. I think that Doug Christie has been a complete and total disaster as a head coach. I was cautiously optimistic heading into the season because he did have a pretty good win percentage last season as the interim. But what we saw, I believe, was with the opportunity, let's call it, for him to build his own coaching staff and build it from the ground up and get rid of all of Mike Brown's guys that he had left over from last year. We saw a team that was trying to play a style that they frankly didn't have the roster to play. And the Kings offense is this season was probably the worst offensive system I've ever seen. I mean,
I would have
they
to agree with that.
there was no offensive system to speak of, frankly. And if we're being completely honest, in retrospect, this was a big problem to close out last season, but we all chalked it up to, oh, well, they don't have a point guard.
Right.
Well, that wasn't the problem. They tried several different point guards, and still the offense looked absolutely atrocious. And yeah, Jeff, I mean, I think it's a complete and total disaster that they're going to bring Doug Christie back for another season.
I mean, I think they have a strategy, man, and I think that we just hate the strategy. But the strategy has to be to lose games. Because what else is there when you look at his record and you look at the system that he ran, the only conclusion we can make as fans is that the goal is to lose games, which I think actually is the goal, just so we're clear. And I think it's been the goal for a while. And if that is your plan, if your plan is to get good draft picks and build your team through the draft, whether you think that's a good plan or not, I think that is the Kings' plan. He's probably the right man for the job. I mean, I think if you want to lose and you don't want to be a competitive organization, you don't want to be a destination, you're looking for a full, complete rebuild. We got our guy.
You asked me several months ago what the point of hiring your great coach when you're about to do a teardown would be. Like, you might as well just let the guy who's willing to do it for cheap be the fall guy and take all the losses so that you could stack draft picks and all that. And I didn't have an answer at the time, but I do have an answer now. I think that having that top shelf coach is your first building block, because at the moment you do not have a single building block on the team. At least if you had that coach, and again, I think I tweeted this out at some point, like, I would make a historic offer to Dan Hurley or someone like that. Like, the league has gone in this direction of like young innovative coaches. I think Brett Stevens was kind of the first one to come up when he came in with the Celtics. And then around the league, you're just not seeing a lot of retreads anymore. Teams are looking for these young guys. Personally, I don't have a problem with bringing in a retread, because the one thing about that is when you're as bad of an organization as the Kings are, literally just bringing in a coach who's been there before and can maybe set some things right, I
At
think
least
would be
navigate.
beneficial. And if we're being completely honest, in retrospect, the Kings did try this when right before the Maloof sold the team, and that they did it again during the Vivek era. They hired Paul Westphal. Then they hired, whatever. They went through a few coaches. Then they ended up hiring George Karl after the Mike Malone debacle. And in both of those situations, Paul Westphal and George Karl said, that guy right there, DeMarcus Cousins, needs to go for this franchise to take a step forward. Had the Kings listened at that time, perhaps they wouldn't have had the 17-year, 16-year playoff drought that they did have. Who's that guy now who's going to be able to tell you, like, hey, this guy on this team is not a winner? I've won. I know what it takes to win. Listen to me. Now, again, we're talking about a coach, not a general manager. You would like to think Scott Perry can do that, but why not have that ace coach who can come in here, develop talent, and build a system?
I agree with you, but I think there's also the hamstringing that's happened with the roster itself. So I think you're simplifying it a little bit. I don't know if it's as simple as you're making it out to be. Like, let's say we got Dan Hurley in here, which why on earth would he come and take this job, even for hero money? I can't
That's
imagine.
it. That's all you have to offer him. You have to offer him, look, you come here, we're going to back up the Brinks truck. You're going to get all the money.
But
And
do
if
these
you
guys, like,
and if
does Dan Hurley care about money anymore? I mean, everyone cares about money, but like, does he care? Like, he's
there's a
he's probably
number that he
making,
would care about. There is.
but
And
I bet,
that's what you have to offer someone like that.
but he might already be making that kind of money.
You got look, you just got to
Like,
do
and
it.
he's winning. Like, and that's like,
Well, that's why
that,
you want him, because he's
I
a
think that,
winner.
right. I think that's my biggest issue with
Hey,
with
look,
your
man.
comments is that, like, I don't think we have the mo to bring somebody like that in general. So I think what we have to do is what we've always done, which is overpay some mid coach to come in here because no one else wants the job. And when he does come in here and he says, hey, this guy's not a winner, or this guy's a bum, or whatever, can we even move those guys
Okay,
based
well,
on the roster?
here's my answer, and this is another indictment on Doug Christie. Part of the reason I think they weren't able to move Sabonis at the end of the day was because Sabonis had the worst season he's had probably in the last 5 or 6 years this season when he was on the court. And why did he look so bad, even pre-injury? Well, they took the ball out of his hands. The offensive system completely changed. Didn't play to Sabonis' strengths, who is your best player, however you want to look at it. And so you nuked his value. Your coach destroyed his value. That's a coaching issue. Sabonis last year or the year before could have fetched you more than the offer they got from the Toronto Raptors. I have
Yeah, of
no doubt
course.
about that.
I agree with you.
So this is kind of why, and again, we talked about this a few podcasts ago, like winning kind of has this cascading effect and losing also has this inverse cascading effect, which is when you're a good player on a bad team, your value is not as high as if you were doing the exact same thing, but your team was winning games. So all these players you have on the Kings that are not being utilized correctly because you have a minor league coach functionally who doesn't have a system that maximizes the talent he has, you're making the players on your team less valuable in the open market. And it's also less valuable because you're a losing team and teams know you're desperate, right?
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So all these things, they compound over time. Now, if you had a coach who came in and was able to maximize the talent that you did have on the roster, that would open up trades. That would open up the ability to get better in the future. That would open up the ability to not institutionalize losing, as Scott Perry has famously coined, which I agree with. You don't want to institutionalize losing. I think a big reason that De'Aaron Fox is a loser is because he got okay with losing when he was here in Sacramento.
But I will say this: it didn't take him long to become a winner in San Antonio.
Yeah, but the Spurs are going to go as far as other players are going to take.
Yeah,
them.
for
It's
sure.
not going to be De'Aaron Fox who's bringing them home.
Agreed. I do think, and I'm trying to figure out how to even say this, I think Doug Christie was a good coach for our young guys. And I say that because of his personality and his attitude towards the game. Again, I don't think he had a good strategy. I don't think he did anything to help us win games. But I could see how he would be a good motivator for the young guys, and I could see how it would be a huge demotivator for the old heads. So if your goal, again, is to bring in a bunch of young guys, he might be a good guy to develop those young guys, because wasn't he the head of player development before he was the head coach? So he was already working with all the young guys on our team. So I think that, rightly or wrongly, the organization sees that as his role. Obviously, it doesn't work as a head coach, but if you're trying to go for bargain basement pricing and you're trying to develop young talent, then again, he might be your guy. I think it's a horrible decision to keep him around at this point, but it's if that's their strategy, I think it makes sense. It has been really interesting as the years gone on to watch Doug go through the peaks and valleys of being a head coach. And I think I have never in my life seen a head coach go through what Doug has gone through so publicly and so emotionally, I guess you could say. I look back, and we've talked about it before, but that press conference
that press conference has been wiped from so many people's memories. It's actually shocking. I see media members.
I think about that press conference all the time. Like, I can't even believe, like as a person who is like responsible for a team myself, if I was to go in and make these like definitive statements and then the performance continued, I would have to show myself out. Like, you can't go in there and be like, I'm gonna like he swung for the fences and he just absolutely whiffed, and then just kind of kept going. Like, all right, well, I guess we'll just like whatever. It's like
let's
that's
let's
wild, man.
let's see what our friends over at ESPN 1320 have to say. I thought this was an interesting clip. I probably should have led with this, and we'll go from there. Let me know if you could hear it.
I need to talk about Doug Christie. We need to have a real conversation about Doug. Because if you're in the camp of you need to keep Doug because you could not evaluate him this year, you got to give him one more year and see what he got. That's fine. I will go so far as to even say I buy into that a little bit. And I think that's a perfectly fine way to view this season and view the job he's done as a coach. What I can't wrap my head around is this idea that anybody saying that Doug has done a bad job doesn't know what they're talking about. Because he's always going to get a level of, and this is fine, and I understand it. He's a Kings legend. He's a Sacramento legend. He's not going to get treated the same way. If the Kings had the exact same season they had this year and Steve Clifford was their coach, there would be no question. Nobody'd be like, well, you got to give him one more year to really see. People would be like, nah, he stinks. Get him out of here.
There have been coaches that have come through Sacramento that have done a much better job than Doug did this year, who didn't see their second season.
Of course.
Let's continue.
Like, they won 21 games.
Mm-hmm.
They could win as many as 23 games.
This was from Friday. So.
Probably 21 or 22. They've had a horrible year. Any idea or any thought that it's ridiculous that you would have a criticism for Doug Christie or you would have a criticism for Scott Perry, I think is off base. They're a bad team, and they weren't supposed to be a bad team. You can point out the injuries, and I have, and I'm there, and that's why I think that you got to give Doug another year. But I think this idea that Doug Christie has been beyond reproach this year, and that the mistake he made the other night, not knowing that the Warriors were in the bonus, is just that's fine. Everybody just ignore that. I think that's kind of silly. And I think that if it was anybody but Doug Christie or a member of the early 2000s Sacramento Kings coaching this team, people would be ready to get him out the door and get a new coach in the building.
I mean, what else even needs to be said? The only part I disagree with is that you got to give him another year.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't understand this. I don't understand this idea that you have to give him another year. So
I think that's him trying to throw, but like, okay, I'm being reasonable here. Like, I get it. You know, can we say definitively that he can't coach? I mean, look, Keegan and Sabonis did not play a single game together this entire season. And so as a devil's advocate, I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, maybe you do need another year to figure out for sure if he could coach or not. But, you know, me, Kyle Madsen, Bay Area Warriors fan guy who does radio in the Sacramento market and isn't really emotionally attached to the team, I'm going to tell you without, you know, with all these qualifiers that I just gave, yeah, it's not crazy to say that he's a bad coach. And I think a lot of people in Sacramento media, because let's not forget, besides being an early 2000s Kings player, Doug worked in Sacramento media for several years before he became an assistant coach and then eventually the interim coach. He's friends with a lot of people who work over at 1140. He's friends with a lot of people. Right. He's friends with James Ham. He has a personal relationship with all of these guys. And I just got into a thing. You probably haven't seen it. I got into a thing this afternoon with Carmichael Dave, where someone accused them of like getting paid by Vivek to speak well about Doug Christie. And Dave makes the joke, well, I have a kid in college, so let me know how much they're making because I want to compare and make sure I'm at least getting what I'm worth or whatever. And I came in and I'm like, look, man, like, I don't think that any of you guys are getting paid. I just think that you guys have a relationship with Doug, and that is clouding your judgment and your ability to whatever. And then some fans said, "Oh, he's done such a good job with the locker room." And I said, "What are you talking about? He's done such a good job with the locker room. There's been all kinds of discord throughout the year. Is it as big of
people were actively quitting on him?
People were actively quitting on him. Was it as active of an S show as it was when you had DeMarcus Cousins and Matt Barnes and that whole crew? No, it wasn't. To be clear,
Sure.
DeMar DeRozan and Russell Westbrook were professionals. Hat tip to them. They're high character guys. They're not going to do the things that DeMarcus Cousins and Matt Barnes did a decade ago. Fair enough. But let's not forget, before the season even started, Zach LaVine said, "I don't know why Doug wants us to pick up 94 feet and have this defense first attitude. We don't have the personnel to do that." That's before the season even started.
Right.
Your players are not listening
They
to the
bailed
head
on you
coach.
before it even started.
Let's not forget that Zach LaVine got into it with a fan on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I've never seen in Sacramento.
Right.
Even with DeMarcus Cousins. And I'm not even saying Zach did anything wrong, but like that's just how bad the situation was. Let's not forget DeMar DeRozan throwing a water bottle on the sideline. Carmichael Dave pointed out, well, you can't blame Doug for those things. And it's like, well, yeah, I can't blame him for a fan getting in Zach LaVine's face or DeMar DeRozan throwing a water bottle. Fair. That's not Doug's fault. Literally, Doug had nothing to do with those things. But if your argument is that he did a good job holding the team together and not having discord, well, these are two examples of discord.
Right.
So, and then
so just so we're clear, Carmichael Dave thinks that he deserves another year. He's happy with this decision.
I'm a man, Geoff. I'm almost 40. I don't listen to the radio as closely as I did when I was 20. I don't know what Dave's actual take is, but he was somewhat sympathetic to Doug in the tweets that I saw. So beyond that, I don't want to speak to exactly what his official position is. I told him, I was like, Dave, look, I think you're being a little subconsciously, because of who it is, I do think you are being a little bit softer on him than you should. That's all. I'm not saying in Dave's mind that Dave doesn't, he's not trying to be impartial. I'm sure he's trying to put that to the side as much as he can.
Understood, yeah.
But look, Doug Christie is not a good coach. And I pointed out to Dave what I've pointed out to you many times, the ultimate Carmichael Dave take. Like, he should frame this up in his house because it's the best thing he's probably ever said in his entire life. There is no salary cap when it comes to your head coach, your coaching staff, and your front office. And if you're a small market like the Kings, why not just spend all your money there? Because it's not like you're going to go out in free agency and sign Shaq. Shaq's not signing here as a free agent. You can maybe trade for Shaq if you have the right pieces and the right scenario plays out, but you're not signing those free agents. You know what you can do, though? Zach LaVine's big $49 million salary does not impact your ability to go sign a head coach. Right. You can offer a head coach a record-setting amount of money, and you could do that today. The season's over. Fire Doug. Eat the remainder of his salary, which is the lowest in the league.
I would say.
You already got a lot of Mike Brown's money off the books because he got the Knicks job, and that's offset somehow. Why not go out and throw unlimited money at Mike Malone? Why not make a historic offer to Dan Hurley? Why not just bring in that guy now? Why have another season that you're just going to waste? You're going to waste all these young guys' early careers. You're going to institutionalize losing unintentionally. Or I don't know, maybe it's intentional. Whether it's intentional or not, you're institutionalizing it. I would just do that now.
So let me ask you, what do you think let's say we brought in Mike Malone or Danny Hurley or whatever. What do you think the ceiling for this team would have been if they coached this team the full year, knowing the injuries, knowing what we know, how it all played out? Do you think they would have won 35 games?
I think they could have won 30 games easily.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 30, 32 games was on the table, even with the injuries. And if you had a competent, coherent system in place,
And
I
so
mean,
does that, but is that enough? Is that in enough of a win total not to institutionalize losing? If
yeah,
you do that for
I
the
mean,
next couple of years, because I think that's, if I'm arguing for why we should have Doug, then like he's cheap and we're going to lose anyways, right?
right.
So if you're going to bring in one of these guys, one of these, we'll say elite coaches that we're going to back up the Brinks trucks for, like, are we going to be able to get over that institutionalized losing hill? And I don't think we are.
I think it's easier to go from 30 wins to 40 wins than it is to go from 20 wins to 40 wins.
I mean, fair enough.
So, I mean, yeah,
So you're going with the building blocks method. Like, you got to get to one place, you can get to another, so you can get to another.
That's it. And I mean, I think that you can get to a point where it's like, okay, this kind of doesn't make sense. We need to take a step back so that we can take a bigger leap forward. I think that opportunity presented itself a little over a year ago with De'Aaron Fox. That was your opportunity to take a step back to try to increase your ceiling long term. And what you did actually was you took a step back to take another 3 steps back after that.
Yeah.
And then no ability to take a step
long term
forward.
whatsoever.
Like, you're basically just hoping that you get lucky in the lottery. That's what you're hoping for.
Right, because that's kind of where I'm at with, like, when I look forward to next season. We have the same thing coming up next season as we had this season. We're going to have essentially the same roster. We're going to have a new draft pick on the team, so it could be a number 1 pick, could be anywhere, could be the 8th pick. Either way, I don't think that's going to influence winning so much that we're going to get to the 40 wins next season, regardless of who the coach is. And so I think for this season and next season, we're locked in a losing zone, and we just need someone to kind of ferry us through that.
I just think that it's never too early to start building towards something. I think that anything you do with Doug Christie is just going to be washed away, and you're going to have to start completely over the day that you let him go. And that day is going to come because he's not going to be the one to turn things around.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any flexibility in their heads? Meaning, if we get the number 1 pick, do you think that they make a different choice?
Well, they all.
But they, I mean, again,
come back next season.
But they can change their mind, right? They're not contractually obligated to bring him back. They just got to pay him his money. So what I'm saying is, like, if we got the number 1 pick and we think that he's the man and he's going to change our franchise, do you think that there's any part of them that would consider changing that and being like, okay, now we need to bring in the real deal coach? Because that would make sense to me.
Look,
like, if we got the 8th pick in this year's draft, then, like, honestly, who cares? Because next year is a total wash anyways with the roster we have. If we got the number 1 pick, okay, at least now we're actually building around someone specific, and we want that person to come into a culture that's going to ideally shape the way that we operate going forward.
I mean, look, man, whoever you bring in, you don't know. Like, you don't know. I mean, I made this point last podcast. If the Kings had drafted Andrew Wiggins or Jabari Parker, we would have thought the Kings got their guy.
He's our guy, yeah.
Right? And it's like neither one of those guys materialized into anything as NBA players.
But I think you have to assume that you got your guy if you're getting the number 1 pick.
I wouldn't assume anything, man. I think you got to look at a player once they've been picked as a player, and, like, here's what they do, here's what they've proven, here's kind of what we project them to be moving forward. But, like, unless you're drafting LeBron, Tim Duncan, Wemby, someone like that, that's different. But that guy's not in this draft as far as I can tell. So whoever you draft, whether it's the 4th pick, the 7th pick, the 1st pick, whatever, you just got to get that pick right. and you got to start building. And then next year, you're going to deal with that again because you're going to have probably another top 12 pick, realistically.
I would assume,
right? And again, I wouldn't stress like, is the third pick that much more valuable than the fifth pick versus like, it doesn't matter if you're drafting Hashim to beat second overall, right? Like,
well, I guess my point is like when you draft the number one pick, even when they drafted
is
Anthony
that the
Bennett,
time to make the move?
even when they drafted Anthony Bennett, they're like, this guy's going to change our franchise. Like you have that thought process when you're making the draft pick. You might not have that thought process at 8, even though it might come to fruition. And so what I'm saying is that like, as you're making that decision, as you're projecting forward, if it's me and I find that I've got myself a guy who I think can change our franchise of stars, then I have to make a change to the culture at that point. But again, if I'm bringing in the number 8 pick, I'm like, okay, like let's add him to the crew and we'll get through this season and then we'll see what happens. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, I think there's a point where you have to have a mindset shift, and the draft number does make a difference in that based on kind of feelings towards what they can do for your franchise.
Look, I want the Kings to get the number 1 pick. I do. I honestly do. I think that your margin of error is a lot greater there. There's a lot.
I was going to say, what's disgusting is I don't even want the Kings to get the number 1 pick because the Kings need to have somebody just fall into their laps. I don't want the Kings making a decision with this guy over this guy because we're going to get it wrong. And then it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah,
I'm like,
man,
this is like Kings trauma. It's like,
that's the type of conditioning that we need to break. It's like,
you gotta break by winning, bro. You win by winning.
You win by winning, right? And like, let's start right now. Okay, the Kings are going to get a good player this year, and just that's what it is, wherever the pick is. What you don't want is to manifest, and not to get all, I don't know, new agey or whatever, but you don't want to manifest this situation where it's like, whatever we do is going to be the wrong choice. It could also not be. It could also be that we just start making the right choices. Is that going to happen with Vivek as the owner? Probably not. But I don't know. I mean, Scott Perry could certainly put together a string of good draft picks. I think that he did okay in this last draft. Interestingly enough, he brought in Dylan Cardwell as an undrafted player who looks to be an NBA contributor. I don't know how, to what degree or what level, but okay, nice pickup. You got Daquan Plowden. He picked up off the G League. He's a 28-year-old, but he might be a rotation guy. End of your rotation. That's good. And then, of course, Maxime and Neek. They look like they're NBA players. And when you think about some of the rookies that the Kings have had come through, you knew their rookie season, this is not an NBA player. So I think that's good. The rest of his career and history as a executive is a mixed bag. I think that there's certainly a lot of misses there, but he's done some good things as a general manager. And if he has the number 1 overall pick, I think he has a very good chance of picking a guy who will make multiple all-star teams in his career.
Okay, and easy transition here. Do you got somebody in mind with the number 1 pick that you like?
Yeah, I think that you got to take Debonsa. I think that he looks so natural, and I think just selfishly, I mean, honestly, I almost don't want to say this out loud, but he kind of fills a need too. You need someone who plays that position. You do need a point guard as well, but I think that you can get by with an average point guard if you have a star wing. That just seems to be the way things work in today's NBA. It's like the wing has turned into the most important position, and I think he would pair well with Keegan. To the extent that we include Keegan as part of any future here. I think he's probably the safest bet. I don't see him being like the guy to lead you to a championship, but he's going to be a star, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with you at the number 1 spot. I agree. I think that Peterson's going to drop down the draft board a little bit. So I think that he's a guy that if let's say we got like the 5th pick, I'd be thrilled to pick him up there.
But you wouldn't take him second.
I don't think so.
Okay,
don't think so.
what's your big board? Who are you taking number 2? Who are you taking number 3? And who are you taking number 4 if you're slotting him at 5?
Honestly, I don't even know all the draft, all the people in that range. But I'm taking Debonsa number 1. I'm probably taking what's his name, Acuff from
Acuff, yeah.
from
Arkansas.
Arkansas.
Coach Cal guard.
Remind me of the other 2 options.
You got Cam Boozer.
I'm not a believer in Cam Boozer, but I think it's because of my Marvin Bagley history. I don't like these Duke guys.
Or is he Apollo?
I don't know.
Then you have this kid. I think his name's Caleb Wilson.
Oh, Caleb, is he on Arizona?
No, he's I think for North Carolina. Jeez.
Oh, he was on Arizona. Yes, so he's bounced around to a couple different teams actually. And I think he's a real player. I don't know if he's.
Yeah, he played for the Tar Heels. I don't think he played much this year though, from what I understand. Let's see, 25.
I think he played for Arizona last year, or the year before that. Either way, he's got game. But honestly, I thought he would have come out a couple years ago, and I remember hearing that he was staying, and I was a little worried by that, I guess you could say.
So, are you taking Acuff over Darren Peterson?
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly,
it's just the injuries or what?
Injuries and attitude. So Peterson, do you remember that Peterson checked himself out of a game?
Mm-hmm.
That is the kind of thing that we do not need in Sacramento.
Is that?
And he has said there are rumors, I should say, that he has intentionally tanked his draft stock because he does not want to come to Sacramento.
Yeah.
So that he's one of those guys that I could see not taking a workout. He's not. I don't think he's our guy.
Okay.
We need volunteers, not what does he say?
I completely disagree on that specific point. I really don't care if they're volunteers or hostages. Give me the hostages.
That's what it is.
Okay. Give me a hostage. I don't care.
Yeah.
I think pro sports. Like,
and don't get me wrong, I think Peterson could be sick. I think he could be really sick. But I think again, you're checking yourself out of college games. Like it's not a good look. Plus he's injury prone. How did that work out last time we drafted somebody that was injury prone? He spent it. Devin.
Oh, dude, come on, man! Like,
listen, dude, he's a top 10 pick for God's sakes. Didn't we draft?
He was 13th. He was 13th. No, he was a 13th pick in the draft. I mean, gee whiz, man! Like, Devin Carter.
Everyone thought was a bad pick when we picked him, and then we found out he had a shoulder injury.
He's just. I mean,
hey, he had a career night the other night. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. He played. Dude, that's the other thing too about the Doug Christie folks. Not to go back to that, but it's like, oh, they finished the season strong. It's like, yeah, dude, they played all the worst teams in the NBA the last 20 games of the season. Like they had literally the easiest schedule, like strength of schedule, the last after the All-Star break.
And those other teams were smart enough to lose. Those other teams were smart enough to lose. Okay.
Okay, so let's take a look here.
But really quick, you're not taking Acuff over Peterson?
Look, man,
you didn't give me your top 5.
Because I've done no research into it. I mean, like, I think you got to be honest with yourself. With like a Cam Boozer, he's not going to be a difference maker for a franchise, but he's going to be a good pro. So I mean, I would look at him. He's a power forward, and the Kings need a power forward.
Right.
I'm probably not taking him top 2. I think if you have the 3rd or 4th pick, you have to look at it.
Sure.
But I think whatever the Kings do here, either you swing for a star or you trade down and you settle for someone who's going to be a solid player. Like I would maybe, if you have like the 3rd pick or the 4th pick, you could trade back like 1 or 2 spots and pick up another draft pick in this draft. I think you maybe look at it. I know Kings fans are very scarred because we traded the 10th pick for number 15 and number 20, I think in 2017, with Donovan Mitchell still on the board, and they ended up drafting Justin Jackson and Scal, I think, or something like that, or Harry Giles. Harry Giles, I think, is who they drafted. And it's like, well, that didn't work out, but that doesn't mean that can never work out, right?
Sure.
So I mean, the 10th pick was Zach Collins. I
Right.
mean, like, whatever. Like,
Right.
you know, people. The draft is it's like throwing darts at a board. That's kind of what it is, even if you're good at it, right? And
Right.
sometimes you get a little lucky and you hit a few in a row, and you string something together. But that's just not how it is for most executives, even the ones that like we think of as great. Remember, the Warriors. Everyone loves to talk about how they're the smartest organization and all that. Well, they drafted Steph Curry, 7th overall. He fell to them. Let's be clear. I'm sure that if they had the number 1 pick, they would have taken Blake Griffin like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And then they followed that up by drafting Ekpe Udoh.
Yep.
Has anyone ever heard of Ekpe Udoh? They drafted
Out of Baylor. Yep.
Brandon Wright. Like they've had a ton of misses. And then they got Clay. And it's like, okay, you hit 2 out of 4, 2 out of 5. And that was enough. Like that's kind of
right.
the way you need to approach it. But while we're on the topic of the lottery and we're on the topic of tanking, what are your thoughts just generally, Geoff, on tanking? Because I'll tell you, for me, I don't think it's as big of a problem as everyone's making it out to be.
I don't disagree with you, but I did hear a solution that I thought makes a lot of sense, which is basically everybody who does not make the playoffs has the exact same chances at the number 1 pick. So I think if you're trying to solve that problem, I think that's the way you got to go about it. Because otherwise, there's really no other way to go about it. Like every other way incentivizes losing. Even if you say like, oh, the bottom 5 have equal or the bottom whatever, it's like at a certain point you're incentivizing losing, and then maybe you don't want to fall below that, so you might win some games. But
what everyone does, unfortunately, is they actually do the loser thing, which is not necessarily illogical, but it's like, why is everyone so mad about the Kings winning games towards the end of the season? Because their percentage to get the number 1 pick dropped from 12.5% to 10.8%. Like, that's not really what it is. What it is if you have the worst record and you don't win in the lottery, you're guaranteed no worse than the 5th pick. Whereas if you're the 5th worst team, you can fall down to 9. Now, the odds of you falling to 9 are pretty low, but that's the concern. I think the Kings last year, they had 2 teams that had a better record than them jump them or something, or maybe it was just the Mavericks. The Spurs also had a good record though, and they fell, from like projected like 9th pick down to the 2nd pick. I mean, to me, I kind of look at it like, what do you expect these teams to do? Because the only way that they're going to get a star is to have the right player on the board when they're drafting. And the sooner you pick, the more likely it is that player is going to still be on the board.
Right.
So the incentives are such that if you're not really going to compete for a championship, you might as well try to take your shot at getting a superstar in the draft or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't subscribe to this completely, but I see the rationale for it. I think that not to derail this whole thing, like the first thing we need to discuss before we even start talking about any type of solution is, do we think that the lottery is legit? Like
I was gonna bring that up, and I was like, I don't even know if we want to go there.
Because I think that if it's not legit, this whole thing's a moot point, and we just shouldn't even talk about it, right? But like for our purposes, let's just assume that everything is on the up and up with the lottery, which
I don't even know how it's possible for it to be, if we're being totally honest. Just looking at the Luka Dallas situation, it's so improbable that would take place.
Yeah. And most of the American public is not good at math, unfortunately, but I am. And I mean, you look at some of the things that have happened in the draft over the years, and it's like, okay, the first year you institute the draft, the Knicks get the number 1 pick.
Right. Can you
frozen
believe it?
envelopes. It's just, wow, that's amazing. And then you have a new franchise in Orlando, and they get the number 1 pick in back-to-back years. They get Shaq, and then they get Chris Webber, who they trade for Penny Hardaway. Then, just to fast forward, you have LeBron coming out. He goes to his hometown team. You have Derrick Rose come out. He goes to his hometown team. Like, what are
Right.
the odds of all these things happening? They're very low. And then again, you have Anthony Davis traded to first you have the National Basketball Association owns the New Orleans Hornets at that time.
Right.
And they're trying to sell the team. And as soon as they sell the team, that team gets the number 1 pick and gets Anthony Davis.
Right.
Statistically very unlikely. Fast forward a few years. That same New Orleans team trades Anthony Davis to the Los Angeles Lakers. They get the number 1 pick the following summer, and they draft Zion. Then the next time when Anthony Davis keeps coming up.
I would say he's involved.
He's involved. Anthony Davis gets traded for Luka because now the Lakers are going to trade in their 30-something-year-old for a 20-something-year-old superstar.
In the weirdest deal of all time.
In a very strange deal.
We just decided to do this quietly. We didn't want any other bidders. We knew exactly who we wanted, this totally injury-prone middle 30s guy. Like, this is our guy.
And there's a 2% chance that they get the number 1 pick based on where they finish in the play-in and all that. And lo and behold, and so like when you compound all of these things, this exact scenario playing out over the course of the last 42 years that we've had a lottery, or 41 years that we've had a lottery, it's like very unlikely that this happened. I think that the likelihood, I had ChatGPT crunch these numbers for me, that the Sacramento Kings, they got the number 1 pick in 1989. And since 1990 till 2026, I think they made the playoffs, 9 seasons out of the bunch, or maybe 10 seasons, because I think there was a Mitch Richmond year they made the playoffs. So that means the other 28 seasons or 25 seasons or whatever, they have had one of the worst teams in the NBA, and they have never gotten the number 1 pick. The statistical likelihood of that is 30%. So even that, that's not like a crazy low percentage, but it's also like they should have got the number 1 pick once,
right?
In that time. Whereas you have teams like the Spurs who've had it multiple times. Cleveland Cavaliers have had it multiple times. Like, just a lot of these teams, they've had it multiple times. So the system itself is not fair in and of itself. It's like, how come the Kings can never get it, even though they're in the lottery, but then you have the Spurs that are in the playoffs every year, and then one year they're bad and they get it? Like, there needs to be
honestly the NBA would be system. Smart. The NBA would be smart to go to the model that I suggested, where it's equal odds for everyone who doesn't make the playoffs, just so they can get away from the conspiracy theories.
But what they also need to do with that is they literally need to have a bunch of balls in a thing. And even that, I wouldn't trust 100%, because we've all seen David Copperfield or one of these magicians pull some things. But they need to just do it and draw the number 1 pick, put all the balls back in, draw the number 2 pick, and it's less dramatic that way. They want to go 3-2-1, but it's like, I don't care about that. Like, we need to see the first pick.
Right.
I want some random person who's not affiliated with anyone to reach their hand in there and pull the ball out with it. I don't want the commissioner doing it. I don't want any envelopes being frozen. I don't want anything like that. And at least then I might say maybe it's legit. But right now, no. Ernst Young audits it. They put their name on it. We have to trust Ernst Young, a tax preparer,
right?
An accounting company, because we know accounting companies never do anything shady. We know that,
never,
ever,
of course.
But I mean, just what would be wrong with worst record gets the best pick, like they do in the NFL? How come the NFL doesn't have a tanking problem?
It's an interesting question. I had not thought about the NFL having a tanking problem or why they don't. But I think that you'd have so many teams tanking if you just gave it to the worst team. That I think it would get out of hand. I don't think it's
I don't
actually
know
out of,
if it's-
I don't think it's out of hand right now. I think that scenario, it would get really out of hand.
Yeah, but that's really bad for business for those teams playing in front of empty arenas and stuff.
But it's bad for business for those teams now, I would guess, except for the Kings, because we can say what we want about Kings fans, but it's got to be bad for business now. Like Charlotte's not getting any attendance. Like these teams are not getting any attendance.
I think that the best theory to decouple it from your own team's record is if at the start of like a season, like based on last season's record, you could pick another team whose draft position you would take, and then that way there's no I don't know, like I don't have the silver bullet answer here.
I think legitimately if they had relegation, we could solve this problem.
Yeah, but then your NBA franchise values drop significantly.
Of course, I understand.
There's no incentive business-wise to do something like that.
I understand, but like if you want a real solve to the problem, get relegation.
Okay. Well, I don't know that we're going to come up with a solution. I know that everything that I have seen up to this point proposed has lots of problems with it. I think that, the Spurs winning the lottery and getting Wemby and then turning around and drafting Dylan Harper with a number 2 pick like 2 seasons later, that just doesn't seem fair to me. It doesn't seem fair to me that like you get these teams that are in the top 3 or 4 multiple years in a row. Like there needs to be this way where you're allowed to get the top pick once every like 10 years or something, like something like that. Like it can't be this thing where, because I think that's
actually not a bad idea, because that actually would eliminate tanking also. Like
that it would, like for repeat offenders. Like
that's what I mean.
We
like,
might
listen,
as well.
bro,
We're not part of the lottery. We're not part of the lottery this year anymore. So we might
that's
as well
actually not a bad idea.
So I don't know.
Yeah, we're ineligible this year anyway, so let's try to play some basketball.
I mean, we have a podcast, but it doesn't mean we have to solve the problem. We're talking about it. Let's see what else with the lottery. Former co-host George, he suggested to me that the lottery is an inverse of record from the last team to not make the playoffs down to like the worst. So like the best record of the non-playoff teams gets the number 1 pick. And like the absolute worst team gets like the 15th pick.
And so what basically it incentivizes winning. So like if you're the first team out of the playoff, you've tried to win games, but you're just not quite there yet. You get the number 1 pick, but the team that gets blown out in the play-in doesn't get rewarded. They just get smashed in the play-in.
Well, I think the play-in teams are part of the lottery.
Okay.
So it's just the 14. So number 15 is the first playoff team that picks. So the lottery is 14 and down. So if like last year, so for example, last year, Dallas, I think, was a top 8 team, but let's say they were the 9th seed. Like, or let's say they were the 8th seed and they fell out. They would still be part of the lottery. Whereas before the play-in, the 8th seed is just in the playoffs, right?
Right. Yep.
So, I mean, I don't know. And my response to George was, okay, but if you're that worst team in the league, how do you get better? And his response was, who cares? Don't be the worst team. That's the incentive.
I mean, I love that.
Like, F them.
Pay a coach, pay an incredible coach, and be a better team.
All right. We've been going now for 55 minutes. Any thoughts, Geoff? Any closing thoughts? Anything you want to let the good people of Sacramento and the surrounding areas know?
Not really, man. I mean, I think that we need to really assess what happens with this pick. And again, I think if we get the number 1 pick, we got to make a change at that coaching position. And I'm not for keeping Doug Christie on board. I want to make that clear. But
you're willing to use him as a sacrificial lamb.
For sure. I don't see any reason not to if we have no prospects of winning. And I don't think that one of these elite coaches would take our money. I think that we have such a stain in the business that we could pay somebody a lot of money and they're not going to want to come here. Because again, these college coaches are making a bunch of money now. Like a bunch of money.
I know.
Like
it doesn't need to be a college coach. It could be someone else who, like a lead assistant somewhere, who just wants to take a crack at basically like Jordy Fernandez. Like, find the next Jordy Fernandez.
Right.
And again, like, the Nets haven't done anything with him, but like,
I understand your point. Yeah,
they're better coached than the Kings. So
I understand your point.
Whatever it is, at the end of the day,
but you got to pay. But I guess that's my point. Is like you got to go pay some assistant coach like gobs of money.
Great. There's no salary cap, and it's not my money or your money. And Vivek's done enough penny pinching in the first 16 years he's on the team where I don't feel bad asking him to do this. I'm sorry.
But we're going to bring in another
his
unproven
fault.
Coach. I agree with you.
This whole thing is Vivek's fault.
I agree
The whole
with you.
thing. He continuously gets in the way. He can't get out of his own way. And the second the Kings start doing things on the right path, that's when he's like, oh, now we need to upgrade. He did this with Malone. He's like, okay, they're playing better, but if they had a better coach, they'd be doing even better. And he sabotaged that. He did the same thing with Dave Yeager. He did the same thing a little over a year ago with De'Aaron Fox. He's like, we finally made the playoffs, and then we lost in the play in the next year. I know, let's get Zach LaVine in here. It's like, dude, you don't know what you're doing. You don't.
Correct.
You add no value. You need to come out, give a mea culpa, apologize to the fans, and start spending money. So anyway.
Amen.
All right. With that, we are going to go ahead and Jeff?
God bless, Toke.
Happy Easter, man.
Happy
Go Kings.
Easter.